Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm very excited to share with all of you swatches, a demo, and my review of the Pat McGrath Mothership II Sublime Palette. And if you guys have watched my Pat McGrath rankings video, you know that this is the last palette to complete my Mothership collection. So I was very excited to pick this up and finally have all 8 Motherships. Of course, Huetopian Dream is coming out right around the corner, so I'm definitely setting my alarm and picking that up the moment it drops. But I figured I wanted to go ahead and do this video before that video, just so I'll have reviews up of all of the Mothership palettes. So if you guys are interested in my thoughts about this palette and how it compares to my other Mothership palettes and a bunch of swatches and comparison swatches and how I got this look, then just stick around. So to start things off, let's go ahead and swatch these shadows. So going from the top to bottom, left to right, here we have the first 4 shades finger swatched. Starting off with Skin Show Glow, which is described by Talia as a light pink with warm yellow undertones and a frosted sheen. Next, we have Copper Toned, which is described as a muted, medium dark copper with warm orange undertones and a pearl finish. Then we have Iconic, which is a medium golden brown with warm undertones and a metallic finish. Next, we have the first Blitz Astral shade, which is Bronze 005, a rich medium dark copper with warm undertones and a sparkling metallic finish. And here we have the next 4 finger swatched. VR Nectar is another Blitz Astral shade, and this is described as a rosy brown base with peach to pink shifting sparkle paired with a metallic sheen. Next we have Extreme Black, which is a deep black with neutral to cool undertones and a matte finish. Then we have Dark, which is a deep red tone brown with neutral to cool undertones and a matte finish. Let me just fix that guy a little bit. And then we have Rose Dusk, a muted, medium dark rosy plum with warm undertones and a pearly sheen. And here we have the last 2 shades in the palette. The star of the show, Blitz Emerald, which is a rich medium dark emerald green with a warm blackened brown base and metallic finish. And then finally, Astral Ghost Orchid, a silvery white base with pink to violet shifting sparkle. So here we have all of the shades, and this is just such a beautiful color story that's extremely everyday friendly. This is probably one of the most neutral Pat McGrath palettes if you take out this green shade. But of course, the green just adds another dimension to this if you want to have a much more colorful, exciting look. So with the swatches out of the way, let's get into how I did today's makeup look. So first off, I would normally start out with a mid-tone matte just all over my crease area as a transition shade, but this palette does not have a mid-tone matte and it instead has a bunch of mid-tone shimmer shades. So these 3 over here are all really smooth, shimmery shades. And so for today's look, I'm going to start off by actually using these 2 in the crease area. So first off, with my Wayne Goss number 16 brush, I'm going to go into Rose Dusk and just use this as a transition shade all over the outer half of my eye. So you can see that blended out just so easily and looks really, really beautiful. So if you don't mind having some slight shimmer in your crease area, these can be a really great option to expand the number of looks that you can do with this palette. So I cleaned off my brush a bit, so now I'm going to go into Copper Toned and use this on the inner third of my eyes just to add some more light there. And this is a really beautiful shade, really great for just a one and done eyeshadow day as well. As you can see, even though this is the same formula as Rose Dusk, because it's a little bit lighter and it has a little bit more of that golden copper shade to it, it just adds some more light to the look. And now to add some more depth, I'm going to go in with my Wayne Goss number 17 brush into Dark. And I'm just going to put this on the outer third of my eyes just to deepen things up a bit. And I will say this shade is quite blendable, so even though it is fairly dark as the name implies, if you use this with a very light, fluffy brush, you can also get this to be much more of a light transition shade. So most of the time when I use this palette, I actually use this shade as my transition shade, but I'm just very careful to blend it out. And now to really deepen up the look, I'm gonna go in with my Wayne Goss number 19 brush into this black shade. And this is her extreme black shade, which is in her first 3 Mothership palettes. So I now have this black 3 times in my collection, but I have to say I don't really mind too much because she has one of my favorite black eyeshadow formulas. Extreme Black does a really good job of both blending out and also building up. And so if you want to use this for a really smoky look, it's great. But also if you want to just add a tiny bit of depth, it can also offer that. Today, I'm going to build it up a little bit in the outer corner just so you guys can see that opacity. So using one of my favorite new Fude brushes, the Soft Definer from Sonia G's Lotus set, I'm going to go into Iconic over here and brush this all over my lower lash line. And I'm brushing this pretty generously because, again, I'm using this kind of in place of a mid-tone matte shade. I'm brushing off that brush, I'm going into dark and adding a little bit of dark just to the outer corners. And I really, really love how this brush can both do that initial wash of color on the lower lash line, but also add that depth. And then just with the very tip of the brush, I'm gonna dab into Extreme Black and just add that as well to the outer portion of the lower lash line. So now for the fun part. Let's dip into these Blitz Astral shades at the very end. So for a while now, several of you have been telling me about the wonders of mixing liquid. So I finally picked up a bottle of the Mehron Mixing Liquid. And yes, this is a pretty big bottle, so I don't know if I'm ever really gonna be able to finish this, but I wanted to go ahead and try this out with you guys in today's look, since Pat McGrath shadows are supposed to perform especially well with this. And if you guys have seen her sneak peeks for her upcoming releases, it looks like she's coming out with a wand called the Intensifies wand that basically deposits mixing liquid. And so I bought this before I heard of that new release. And so I'm gonna go ahead today and just try to mimic what I've seen her do in her videos with that new wand. And so hopefully I can achieve a similar effect just with normal mixing liquid. So I am a total noob to using this. I've only used this once before. So today's video is gonna be mostly a first impression of using mixing liquid. But I have here just this normal plate, which I know you would ideally have a little mixing palette that you would use for this, but this is kind of the best I have right now. So I'm just gonna try to pour a tiny bit of this because at least when I tried this yesterday, I felt like I really didn't need that much. So here's just a little bit of liquid on this. And I've seen when she uses the wand, she basically first puts the mixing liquid down and then she goes in with her finger to apply the Blitz Astral shade. That said, normally I've heard the way people use mixing liquid is they put it on a brush and then go directly into the eyeshadow pan. So for today's demo, I'm gonna try both ways. I'm gonna try first putting down the mixing liquid on this side and going in with a finger, and on this eye I'm just gonna do it all on the brush. So first off, just taking this random synthetic brush that I got in an Ipsy bag, I'm going to lightly dab it into this mixing liquid, and then I'm going to sweep this onto the eye, trying not to mess up all the work that I did before. It's so cooling. It's a very interesting sensation to have this very cooling liquid on your eyes. And now going in with Bronze 005, which is a very chunky formula, I'm gonna see how this performs right over this. Oh wow, yeah, okay, this definitely makes a big difference. Because if you guys saw my last video, which was reviewing the Sonia G Lotus set, I used the Builder brush directly into this shade, dry, and it was really hard to get full opacity that way. I mean, the brush did a great job considering the shadow was dry, but wow, that is really, really gilded. Okay, so that technique does work, which is great. Okay, so now this is the part that scares me a little bit because the idea of putting something wet into my eyeshadow pans really freaks me out. So I'm just gonna take a little bit more of that mixing liquid on this and then just swirl this into the pan. And then let's try putting it on this side. Oh wow, this is a lot more wet than I anticipated. Okay, interesting. So this definitely creates a much more sheer effect than the finger. I might have put a little bit too much liquid on the brush, but this definitely gives a very melted golden look. Wow. You can see the difference here, hopefully. At least I can see it very clearly. This one looks like you can still see some of the flakes and texture, whereas this one just looks like completely molten gold. I mean, they're both really beautiful effects, but definitely I would say this side is a little bit more high impact in comparison to this side. And let's just hope this doesn't lead to hard pan in my Mothership palette, because this guy is still relatively new, so I really don't want it to die on me. Wow, that makes such a big difference though. So one of the reasons I was okay using this guy as my guinea pig is this is a shade that I would say is just okay used dry. It's nothing really to write home about. So as long as this doesn't lead to the shadow being hard pan or something, I think this is awesome. I am really, really impressed with this effect. And I feel like if you have a really good small brush, you can definitely go in with this and create just a really nice silky liner as well. And so I might actually try that later today with this Blitz Emerald shade. But so far so good. This is really, really pretty. So just to, again, even things out a little bit, I'm gonna go in with a finger now, and the pan still feels a little bit wet, so I feel like I might need to just let this guy dry out a little bit after today's video, because I really don't want any sort of hard pan or any change in the texture. But wow. That is so intense. Okay, thank you all so much who have been recommending for a while now that I look into mixing liquid, because this really, really, really changes Pat McGrath's shadows. It really, really ups the intensity. So that's super, super cool. Alrighty, so now I think I need to do a little bit of work to blend this into the black again. So I'm going to first go back into the dark shade and try to just use this a little bit on the border right now and see if I can smooth that out a little bit so it's less harsh. Also just add a little bit more black as well to the outer corner. And maybe actually with my GSN 9 brush, I'm going to take a little bit of Iconic and ease the transition a little bit by just putting this as well on that. Okay, so now I also want to use these other Blitz Astral shades. So with my builder brush, I'm going to dip into the VR Nectar shade and sweep this all over the inner third of my lower lash line. And this is definitely one of the standout shades of this palette. It has a really, really pretty pink flip to it. And actually, I wonder if I take a tiny bit of mixing liquid on this brush and dip that in, if that will help with the intensity. Now I'm just going all mixing liquid happy, but hey, it's fun to play around with makeup. Okay, yeah, even that tiny bit of mixing liquid I think is helping this just adhere and build up a little bit more. Yeah, this definitely opens a new world of possibility for me and my Pat McGrath collection, because basically, historically, I've mostly just used the Blitz Astral shades as glitter toppers, because dry, I think that's the best use case for them. But now that they can be used wet, it's really impressive how they can be built up and really used on their own without any sort of additional base. Since I already have so much glimmer on my eyes though, I'm just gonna go in lightly with a little bit of Astral Ghost Orchid and just use this as a glitter topper on top of the gold, just to add some more three-dimensionality to this look. And I would say normally, if I was just building a look around this, I probably would have just left the gold as is, because I really liked that molten gold look. But today, of course, I want to try out all of the shades on my lids just so you guys can see that. And I think that just added a lot more interest to the eyes, which is impressive because I feel like there's already a lot of stuff going on my eyes, but that just added some of that additional kind of pinky purple reflectivity to it, and also a little bit more dimension. So very, very cool. Alrighty, so now for the star of the show, this green shade over here. So I'm gonna try using this as a liner. We'll see if this works, because I feel like this look is looking pretty nice and pretty cohesive right now. So adding this green might just mess everything up. But in the interest of just showing you guys all of these shades, I have here the synthetic brush from Sephora. And so I'm just gonna use the little smudger end over here and dip this into a little bit of mixing liquid. And then just try to pick up some of this emerald shade. And then let's just try to start really close to the lash line. So if I need to retreat, I can do so. Definitely adding a new flavor to this look, to say the least. I think I need a thinner brush. So let me actually go in with this brow brush, since I don't actually have a really good eyeliner brush. And so I'm gonna go into some of the mixing liquid and then just take a little bit of Blitz Emerald and then use this in the inner portion of my lid. Okay, I'm just gonna keep the wing pretty simple. Kind of interesting because this Blitz Emerald shade actually has a little bit of a black base to it already. So I feel like in the wing, it almost looks a little bit like a black wing instead of a green wing, depending on the angle you look at it at. I've read normally people use mixing liquid with loose powders, and so that makes it a little bit easier just to kind of mix up some liquid eyeshadow on the go. But of course, with my Pat McGrath shadows, I don't really want to be scraping them out of the pan, so I'm just dipping directly into the pan, and hopefully that's okay. If you guys have been using mixing liquid with your Pat McGrath shadows for a while, let me know if you've seen any ill effects from dipping directly into the pan. But wow, okay, that actually worked. Wow. So now you can just transform all of your eyeshadows into liquid liners, which is pretty cool. So now let's finish off this look with even more glow. So with my Sonia G Mini Booster and some of that Skin Show Glow shade, I'm going to just sweep that all over my brow bone area. And with my Wayne Goss Artist Small Brush, I'm also gonna just sweep that all over the high points of my cheeks. I love using her Skin Show shades as highlighters. And then for the inner corner, I'm gonna go in with my Rephr number 3 brush and VR Nectar, just because I feel like VR Nectar is not getting as much time to shine as it deserves. And then just a tiny bit of Skin Show Glow just to diffuse the edges. Alrighty, so here we have the completed look, and in case you're curious what else I have on my face, today I used my Gucci bronzer in the shade 2 and my M Cosmetics Venetian Rose blush, and then on my lips I have my 2 new M Cosmetics lip liners plus my Charlotte Tilbury Kissing lipstick in the shade Nude Romance. So with the eyeshadow look done, let's get into my overall thoughts about this palette. So first off, I have to confess, there's a reason this is the last Mothership palette that I picked up. So when I first started out purchasing Pat McGrath palettes, I was really debating between this and Bronze Seduction as the first palette to pick up, because those are the two that are most approachable, most neutral, most everyday friendly. And so I ended up picking up Bronze Seduction because that was the one that was most heavily recommended as a good starter palette for Pat McGrath. And if you guys watched my video about that palette, you know that for some reason the first one I got was a major dud. It really turned me off from Pat McGrath for a while. And then eventually I came around, tried Subliminal, and started to really just collect Pat McGrath palettes. And because I didn't pick this guy up first, it ended up just really kind of falling down the list of palettes for me to pick up. And that's for 2 reasons. So one, after I started really trying a lot of Pat McGrath palettes, I really came to know Pat McGrath for her really interesting special shades and for pushing me out of my comfort zone. And so this one definitely does not push me out of my comfort zone that much. And so as I started collecting more of her palettes, I really prioritized the ones with more interesting and unique color stories. In addition, this palette does have a lot of repeats. So as you collect more Pat McGrath palettes, you'll find that this one is going to look less and less unique compared to your existing collection. So for example, over here, Rose Dusk is in Divine Rose 1, Astral Ghost Orchid is in Subversive, and of course Extreme Black is in all 3 of her original Mothership palettes. And so for me, looking at this palette, essentially most of the shades are not that unique in comparison to the rest of my Pat McGrath palettes. All of her palettes contain a bronze and a gold shade, so that kind of takes out these 2 shades from being very unique. And this one is kind of peachy bronzy, so it's also a very common shade that she includes. And then of course all of her palettes have a skin show shade that looks relatively similar. So at the end of the day, for me, the most unique shades in this palette were definitely these 2 over here, so Blitz Emerald and VR Nectar. And so that's why it took me a while to come around to picking up this palette. That said, I do like this palette now that I have it. I would say compared to my other Mothership palette, this color story doesn't necessarily inspire me as much, in part because I feel like emerald green is just not the most flattering on me. So I did 2 other looks with this palette where I tried to really center the look around the emerald green shade, because this is of course the most standout shade in the palette. And so I'll put up pictures here of the 2 looks. One is an extremely smoky look using a lot of the black, a lot of the brown, and then this emerald shade with some mixing liquid. And then I did another look with all of the shadows dry. And so I put this Blitz Emerald all over the lids. And it was nice and I enjoyed the look, but it's just not really, I guess, the color story that inspires me and makes me want to create a lot of new additional looks. That said, this color story is just very everyday friendly and these shades are super approachable. And so I imagine I'll probably reach for this palette more so for days where I want more of a bronzy, peachy glam look. And I do think this is a palette that is a really good introduction to Pat McGrath. A lot of these shades in this palette are staple shades. I would still say though, if you are picking up your very first Mothership palette, I would probably still more so recommend Divine Rose 2 if you like something really colorful and romantic, Divine Rose 1 if you like something a little bit more muted and mauve-y, and Subliminal if you want something that's going to push you out of your comfort zone. This one is kind of in between, probably the best if you want a really safe color story with just one pop over here. The formulas in this palette though are definitely impeccable. I usually find that Pat McGrath's deeper matte shades are a little bit tricky to blend out, but I actually didn't have that problem at all with these guys. If anything, this dark shade, despite being pretty dark, has a slight tendency to blend away, so that's the only problem I have with this guy over here. But that's kind of the opposite problem of what I usually encounter with her deeper mattes. All of these shimmery shades over here are just really smooth and beautiful on the skin. They just provide a lovely sheen and blend in super easily. And all of these Blitz Astral shades are a lot of fun, and as we discovered today, especially if you use them with mixing liquid, these are a really gorgeous way to add some shine and dimension to really any look that you're doing. Overall, I'm gonna have to keep playing around with this palette before I can say how it ranks in comparison to my other Mothership palettes. But at the moment, I would say it's probably more in the middling range. I love all of my Mothership palettes, so that's not a bad thing by any means, but it's not really something that wows me a lot. It's more just like a really solid staple palette. So before closing out today's video, I wanted to also just leave you guys with some comparison swatches. So here we have Skin Show Glow from Sublime. And then we have the Skin Show shade from Divine Rose II, which has more of a pink flip to it. And then we have the one from Subversive, which has much more of an orangey bronze to it. And finally, we have the one from Bronze Seduction, which has more of a gold undertone. And when I first tried Sublime, one of the first things that stood out to me was this formula for Skin Show Glow is actually really different from her other Skin Show shades. So it might be a little bit hard to see in the swatches, but it actually has much more of a satin finish in comparison to the rest, which have a much higher shine finish. So I'm not sure why she decided to go for a much more subdued finish for this Sublime palette, but I did want to just call that out in case you've tried out her other palettes and are expecting the same formula for the Skin Show shade. Next up, for copper toned, I have a few comparisons in the bronzy, peachy, orangey family. So first off, we have the Bronze Rosé shade from Divine Rose II, which is a Blitz Astral shade, so has a higher shine finish and also has a bit more of a golden undertone to it. Then we have the Golden Bronzy Metallic from Bronze Seduction, which is a bit deeper than copper toned and has more of a golden brown base to it. And last, we have the Blood Moon shade from Midnight Sun, which is also a Blitz Astral shade, so much shinier than copper toned and also a bit more reddish in undertone. Next, for Iconic, you can see that there's quite a number of shades that are quite similar from Pat McGrath's Motherships. So first off, here's the bronzy shade from Midnight Sun, and then we have the shade from Divine Rose, and finally we have the cooler bronze shade from Bronze Seduction. So all of these are definitely a little bit different, not exact dupes, but I think these will all look quite similar on the lids, with the Bronze Seduction one just being a little bit more glittery and high shine compared to the rest. And then next up, we have Bronze 005 in Sublime, which is quite similar to the Golden Bronzy shade in Bronze Seduction, but they're very different finishes. This guy is a Blitz Astral shade, really high shine, really flaky, whereas this guy is more of a smooth metallic. But just to show you guys that this is more of a bronze than a gold, I have here the gold shade from Divine Rose II and the gold shade from Decadence, which is more of a pure yellow gold shade. So next up we have VR Nectar, which definitely doesn't have any dupes. So next to it is VR Fire Opal, which is much more green and gold. And then we have VR Pink, which is probably the closest, but is much more of a cool toned pink in its flip. And then finally we have Astral Pink Moon, which actually doesn't have much pink. And here again is VR Nectar and VR Pink. So VR Pink is on the bottom, and you can see they're both quite similar, but VR Pink has a little bit more of a cool toned pink, whereas VR Nectar in person almost has a slight greenish shift to it. So here are the comparisons with dark and Sublime. So here I have the shade from Subversive, which I think is called Deep Shade. It's very, very similar to dark, just maybe a little bit more reddish in undertone. And here I have the deeper brown shade from Bronze Seduction, which is also in the same family, though slightly more pigmented. And finally, here's the deeper brown shade in Subliminal, which is much more cool and gray in undertone. So here is the last comparison, which is for Blitz Emerald, which is very, very different from these other shades. So this is the green shade Gigabyte from Subversive, and this is the mossy green shade from Midnight Sun. And here I have Sexual Terrestrial from Divine Rose II. I included this just because it has a green shift, and so I wanted to compare that. And I would say that depending on the angle, like maybe right here, the green shift of Sexual Terrestrial is somewhat similar to Blitz Emerald, but obviously overall they are very, very different shades. So that's it for today's video. If you guys like this video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to know down below if you guys have a favorite Mothership palette. And also if you are interested in the upcoming Huetopian Dream release, then please subscribe down below so you'll know when my video on that palette comes out. Thank you guys for the support, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!